Graciela and I spent quite a lot of time together, working on projects. She needed somebody to go with her, like to photograph on the metro, like to go to the Mac shop on Regent Street when we were photographing underneath the stairs. When Graciela wanted to build the camera obscura, I helped her to do that. That was a fascinating experience. It was basically her room, her bedroom, I think, in Delfina. And so we had to seal every single piece of light in the whole of the room. When we did it, when it was completely black, and we just made the pinhole, that was fantastic. That was fantastic. Because we had this brilliant, clear, upside-down impression of trees moving in the wind and a building opposite, and it was perfect. The focus was absolutely right. That was a miracle, because we didn't know that it was going to work. And so that was a really interesting experience. So it was things like that I helped her with, and for me it was just amazing. Because I was learning about making art in a different way. I was learning from somebody who understood absolutely the nature of material and communication and the devices you can use to do it, and projection and heliography and all those different things that came to play, and then using three-dimensional objects which were photoemulsified and so on. All this was a way of creating communication. To have somebody who took the photograph itself from a one-dimensional, flat, relatively uninteresting thing into a fully three-dimensional work of art, but to move it into the realm of sculpture. To think of a photograph as a sculpture, before then I didn't think it would be possible, but Graciela showed how that was possible. Graciela's most powerful works are where you have something mysterious, the eyes between the lines like that, or the sticks, something which doesn't quite make sense until you look at it in a different way, or until you come across it like the eyes we did in Venice on the stone pillars, and so on. And here the context is essential. And with so much of her work, the context is the key to it. And if you can't get the context right, in other words, the place where it is, you're not going to have the same result. When Graciela was in London, I think she was preoccupied by that, and a lot of the time at Delfina was spent examining that kind of message making. And she became more interested in transferring messages over distance and using reflective surfaces and so on, and projecting through. A lot of the work she did had slides which you projected through the slide. We projected across the River Thames. Yes, it did change her. I think she had access to materials, and I think that was that moment was when Graciela first started to look most seriously at projecting through something. So sending a signal. So the heliography was one thing, but the heliograph was another thing. And the stencil, the silk-screened images onto the plastic, and then projecting through that and sending that signal over a long space or a short space or onto the wall of a space this big, and so on. I think the word communication comes into her work far more at that point, about sending messages. And then she started to look at ways of doing that in a much more brave way. And Graciela's work was essentially about looking, it was about taking the time, it was about having an experience, about living inside it, getting inside it and staying there, inside the camera obscura, inside the exhibition space. You've got to try and make magic. And Graciela's objective was always, she was a magician.